You know the stereotype of the MBA grad, right? This ruthless, profit-driven executive. But how true is that really? Today we're going to unpack that very idea, the MBA paradox. Are they trained to be tyrants, or are they actually relationship builders?
I mean, it's a heck of a question, but people have been asking it for years. This idea that business schools are just factories for corporate greed, it's a powerful image. So where did it even come from?
Well, this quote from the brilliant management thinkers Sumant Triggishal really hits the nail on the head. Back in 2005, he argued that by focusing so much on pure economics, business schools were pretty much telling their students that morality didn't matter in management.
And let's be honest, critics had plenty of material to work with. Every time a massive corporate scandal erupted, Enron, WorldCom, the whole 2008 financial meltdown, a lot of people pointed the finger right back at the universities that trained these executives. The story seems simple. Business schools gave them the playbook.
So let's really look at this stereotype. The cold, calculating MBA who sees people as just numbers on a spreadsheet and relationships as, a distraction from the bottom line.
To properly investigate this, we need to understand the two basic leadership styles at the heart of this whole debate, being task-oriented versus being relationship-oriented. Let's break down what that actually means.
Okay, so on one side you've got task orientation. This is all about execution, efficiency, getting the job done, period. Communication flows from the top down. Here's what to do, here's how to do it, and get it done by Friday. But on the other side, you've got relationship orientation. This style is all about teamwork, collaboration, listening, and just making sure the people on your team feel supported.
A classic, almost legendary example of a task-oriented leader is Jack Welch from General Electric. His rule was famous. If a GE business wasn't number 1 or number 2 in its market, it got sold. His focus was so intense, he even earned the nickname Neutron Jack, because he'd leave the building standing, but the people would be gone.
Now, for a totally different approach, think about Bruce Nelson, the former CEO of Office Depot. He focused on performance and on people. Under his watch, the company was consistently named one of the best places to work. He was all about creating a culture of integrity and transparency.
So we have the stereotype, and we have these two different leadership styles. Now what? How do we find out which style really defines MBA students? Well, for that, we can turn to a really fascinating study. Back in 2009, a group of researchers decided to answer this question once and for all. They went straight to the source to figure out what the actual leadership tendencies of MBA students were. So how'd they do it? Simple, really. They took 346 MBA students and had them fill out this standardized test called the Style Questionnaire. It's basically a tool that figures out where you fall on that spectrum between task focus and relationship focus. They wanted cold, hard data, not just opinions. And the results? Well, they were definitely not what the critics would have guessed. In fact, they were pretty shocking. And here it is. As you can see, it's not even close. The average score for task orientation was pretty high, sure, but the score for relationship orientation was significantly higher. It was well into the high range.
So the main takeaway here is crystal clear. The study found that this group of MBA students was not task-obsessed at all. They actually scored way higher on the relationship-building side of leadership.
And for you stats nerds out there, the p-value tells the whole story. It was incredibly small. I mean, so small, it's a number with 36 zeros after the decimal point. So what on earth does that mean for the rest of us? It just means that the odds of this result being a random fluke are practically zero. This is what you'd call a statistical slam dunk. The difference they found was absolutely real, and it was huge.
Okay, but that leads to the next question, right? Does getting older or having more experience in the real world push MBAs to become more focused on just tasks? Well, the researchers looked into that too.
And they did find a little bit of a trend. MBAs who were older or had been managers for longer did score a tiny bit higher on task orientation. But, and this is so important, the difference wasn't big enough to actually matter statistically. No matter how they broke down the groups, relationship orientation was still the dominant style, by far. So we've got this data, and it seems to completely fly in the face of the popular stereotype. So what? What does this all mean in the real world? Well, first things first, this is a direct challenge to that whole corporate villain stereotype. The study suggests that, for this group anyway, the caricature of the MBA who steamrolls people just to get a job done, it doesn't really hold up. What this might mean is that business schools have learned a really important lesson over the years.
that long-term success isn't just about spreadsheets. It's built on trust with your employees, loyalty from your customers, and strong partnerships. It suggests that maybe the most valuable thing an MBA learns to build isn't a portfolio, but a network of solid relationships.
But before we can close the book on this and say the stereotype is officially dead, there's one last, really crucial thing we need to think about.
Let's look at the timeline. Ghoshaal's critique landed in 2005, right in the middle of the Enron-era scandals. Then this study comes along in 2009, telling a completely different story. But that was then, and we are living in a completely different world now.
And that leaves us with the million-dollar question. This data is from 2009. In all the years since then, with AI, remote work, and all sorts of new economic pressures, has that balance between task and relationship shifted all over again? Is the MBA of today still a relationship builder, or is the pendulum swung back towards the tyrant? Now that's something to think about.